focused on, quote unquote, the synergy of bringing the two businesses together. If only these leaders would put real emphasis on being emotionally intelligent and connective and engaging for their employees, because then you're not talking about a 3 or 5% bump. You're talking about as much as 30%. It absolutely dwarfs the kind of levels of, increased productivity and therefore profitability that can be achieved through these, more functional business deals. So really it's an area where my experience, my father-in-law is a former CEO, my father was an executive, I've worked for 2 other CEOs directly. So many of them are there because they are good at finances, legal issues, operational issues. Not a lot of them are there because they're people persons, and yet that might be the most important attribute they could bring to the job.
I'll tell you an interesting experience I had at age 26. I was brought into a $25 million research and development project called Protocol. And Bell Canada brought a team of 50 people down to Reston, Virginia, to launch what they considered to be a Century 21 concept in the telephone answering service industry. They had a 10,000 conversion rate interest. They wanted to convert 10,000 sites to this protocol concept. And they came in scaring the hell out of everybody in the industry. They worked fast. They were takeover type consciousness, the way they spoke to people. There was tremendous arrogance because all the money came from Bell that they couldn't lose. And of course, this concept with Century 21 worked. So of course they could replicate it. And people hated them. They hated them. And I said to my then boss, there's no way, by the way they're doing business, people go into business because they emotionally want to run their own business. They don't want to be taken over by a big company. And unless they treat them differently and talk to them differently and have a different business process, they're absolutely going to fail. And my then boss said to me, no way. Do you know how much money they have? I said, mark my words, they're going down. And guess what? In 2 years, they were taken out of the U.S. market. They couldn't grow fast enough. And there weren't enough people signing on because they had no emotional intelligence. Zero.
Yeah, no, the emotional dynamics are absolutely crucial. I mean, how many wars have been fought in which the better armed, better financed, better equipment, army lost to somebody else who was driven by, commitment to the cause and a sense of values, and it gave them the emotional fuel to hang in there against what seemed to be overwhelming odds. It's a dynamic that's way too often undervalued and missed. And I think in executives to come in with a combination of, probably the most toxic would be actually contempt and fear, because it means you're going to dismiss or avoid other people, and you're essentially isolating yourself. And I agree with Thomas Friedman, his thesis in the Lexus and the Olive Tree, that the companies, the individuals, the countries that work best interconnect with other people. They learn from the exchanges. And they learn not just intellectually, but emotionally, what's salient for others. There's a joke in the New Yorker where 2 women are talking and one says to the other, but enough about me. What do you think about me? How many companies are like that? A lot.
Is that what you call the me story?
That would be trying to get to the me story for the other party rather than your own me story, endlessly, yes.
Share about that.
Well, I was speaking really in terms of customer service.
Right.
And, the truth is that customer service means we are going there at the point where we think we didn't get any service. We didn't get what we expected. And we probably pretty much feel like a fool. And we feel really vulnerable because now we're up against the big entity, the company. We've given them the money, which is the thing we fear they most want, rather than giving us a good deal. And we're trying to get some justice. And it is a moment when you will absolutely have the customer's attention. And if you can fulfill or make good on what has gone bad, you will have their gratitude. And, Jeffrey Gitomer has a line about don't give any customers a feeling you wouldn't want to have yourself. Bingo. But who gets staffed into the customer service roles? A lot of times it's the dead-end jobs, the people who aren't paid as well, and yet they're the ones who can give you the biggest bounce in return. I think companies would be very smart to put people into those roles who, first of all, enjoy that role. Second, who've been with the company for a while, who understand how the company works, the procedures, not just someone who is passing through really briefly and has no commitment to the company or the customer. And third, you should pay them a bit more. It's a really important job. And I think too often customer service people, I've spoken to some of their conferences, they are starved for funds within the company. They are seen as a cost center when in fact I think they're the frontline buttress to protect loyalty along with the people who design the offer originally.
I agree with you. You said in your book, Emotionomics, that there's a deep-seated explanation for a prospect resistance are almost always emotional in nature. In other words, when a prospect is resisting, it's emotional in nature. And most salespeople and business organizations don't get that.
I think a lot of salespeople, and I was just talking to someone the other day who's a good friend of mine. I like him. He's a really pretty good salesperson, but he admitted to me, he said, I just love the hunt. And guess what? If you're the hunter, then someone's being hunted. And it's not a really great feeling as a prospect to be the hunted. That means once you get killed and bagged and you're the trophy hanging from the wall, the deal's over. And you end up really worrying about, where's the reciprocity and where's the relationship. And there has been a lot of, buzz and BS about relationship building models of sales, but I pretty much haven't seen it really enacted. And the key thing is to go back to people want to feel safe and they want to feel comfortable. The person who comes after you as the hunter isn't going to make you feel very safe and really especially valued. You're only good to the extent that they can extract money from you. And I mean, this myself. There are a few times where I tried so hard for a meeting and I finally got it. And I probably was, too aggressive, too eager in the meeting. That doesn't make you a good listener. So I'm not suggesting I'm high and mighty and above everyone else and never made a mistake in life. But it behooves all of us to slow down and listen a whole lot better.
Don't you think that a lot of the cultures in businesses who have been trained from the old guard of business about how to get a sale, they're still lingering in the old model, and therefore to create these relationships and to take time for a customer to come in, a lot of the sales organizations are not mentally run that way. They want it fast. They want it yesterday. And the thing is, that energy is in the vibration of the person who's selling. So they're taking whatever's in that department over there. So how do you see the retraining of the mind of the sales managers and who they're reporting to?
Well, I think they're going to have to fundamentally start over, and I think they should start over with the breakthroughs in the brain science. People have four motivations, as suggested by two Harvard professors who are organizational psych people. And that's to defend ourselves, but it's also to acquire, to bond, and to learn. And the salesperson is only coming pretty much from, I'm going to acquire money for myself, which throws the prospect into the defend myself thing, when in fact learning about the offer and bonding so it's a sales relationship would be so much better. And so without that emotional intelligence, I was meeting with one company, an insurance company, said, oh, yeah, we do the emotions part. We recognize emotions are important. I said, oh, really? That's great. Tell me some specifics. Well, there was this deafening silence that followed. And I thought to myself, no, you haven't really retooled at all. This is merely lip service. This is what I call the Casablanca effect. Round up the usual suspects. And so they do need to start over. And I'm waiting for the day it happens.
Let's talk about companies exuding a personality and branding. Your work with facial coding and body language and brain science, how is it going to redirect our understanding of how branding should be?
There are three emotional triggers, essentially, in your relationship with the consumer. First one is just the immediate stimuli. And so that can be how you package the offer, the, store environment, the advertising, and that's fine, but it tends to be a bit more transient. As you move on to the brand and the projected way in which you're going to connect with people, two things emerge. One is your value system. What are you known for as a company? I mean, Apple, of course, has done this brilliantly. The whole think different thing has over the years projected them as someone who wanted to be iconoclastic, wanted to be able to promise you that it's not just business as usual. But the other one is the personality. I've applied a lot of this to politics, for instance, because the candidate is the package, is the offer, ultimately. In most usually Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. There's only a small spectrum of difference between the candidates on the positions, but how they're going to operate as a leader